Hello, I'm Ed Burt with Beacon Application Services, and today's Beam demo, we're going to highlight the ability of Beam Compare to analyze data and metadata, spanning across both your application tables and system tables. It's very common for PeopleSoft customers to spin off multiple PeopleSoft environments, a test environment, a training environment, refresh a user acceptance environment from one of their other environments, only to see those environments then have different settings, have differences that cause problems. Some of those more common areas, are things like trees and security. So we'll use our Beam job to actually run a tree compare. So we'll open up our job. It's going to look at financial environment test versus financial environment training. Our source and target. We'll do a compare on the trees. And the tree that's giving us the difficulty is the department tree. So we set that as our parameter, and off that job goes and runs. We've also heard that there's some security differences that have been causing some troubles. So we'll go back to our jobs and we'll look at our user security. So let's use those same two environments as our source and our target, and we'll run the Beam compare for security. And while we're here, let's just run a job to look at the overall objects between the two environments. So Beam also provides a compare method that will look at your recent changes. So we'll run the recent change compare, set that to 30 days, and let's get the changes that have actually happened between the two environments over the past 30 days. So in our analysis, we've just kicked off 3 Beam methods to analyze the two systems. Going over to the dashboard where we see our results. Come back to the dashboard. See our results. So there's our tree job that was run. We started this. That is completed. We've got the results here. And we see that, yes, in fact, there are differences in the tree definitions and in the tree leaf. If we look at that leaf, drill down on those differences, we'll find that we have one node, one leaf, that's defined in the source environment, but not in the target environment. And that specific leaf is, with this effective date, this department range, 1200 to 12999. So you see it tells you the exact keys, the field names, and the values. So that row, that node, exists in the source environment, but was not defined in the target environment. And we have the reverse situation. It looks like there were a couple of nodes that were defined in the target environment, but not the source environment. And thus, as you're running your NVisions for your department tree, you're now getting different results because you have different tree nodes. Quick compare brought you right down to the exact differences there. We can actually see, looking at the tree definition itself, the last operator ID field is different, so we can actually see, yep, there's our department tree, and here's the operator that made that change. And it gives us the other details that were changed at that high level. So it looks like some of the settings were also changed. So the duplicate leaf setting has been set to a Y in one environment versus the other. Whether it's metadata or data, the tree compare brought us directly to the differences in our department tree. Go back to the dashboard. Here's our security job is also finished. And in our security job, we have 9 tables related to overall security, and we are seeing some differences there. Some of them do make sense. They're probably just date and time stamp differences. But let's start right here with our field definition. Yeah. All right, so we are getting some just general date and time stamp differences between the two environments. But the key table within security is our operator definition table. We go directly to that table. Now we're seeing our security differences. Again, we have 2 operators that are defined to the source environment but not to the test environment. So operator test B and operator test D have been defined here in just one environment, not both. The reverse, we've got 22 operators defined in our target target environment, not our source environment. And some of the other detailed settings within security seem to have been changed as well. So the currency definition for 2 operators has been changed. The email definitions for a few operators. So if they're in the workflow or in notification functions and the email is operating differently between the 2 environments, this could be your reason why. So quick compare. Beam zeroes in on the exact fields, providing you with the exact differences that may have happened there. The third job we kicked off are recent changes. Is still in process. That runs for about 7 minutes, so I'll go to the job that we ran previously. And that's 7 minutes, a little longer running job, because we have 90 tables being analyzed or compared between the 2 environments to see what your overall recent changes were. We can sort that by our differences. And we do see that we have a handful of structural changes. Some of them really don't mean much for our application messaging, for example. Okay? You're going to get different messages by different databases. So these keys, these transactions are certainly understandable. As messages are produced in one environment, they are different messages than the messages produced in another environment. Okay? But things like our rec field definitions, that is something worth looking at. And we'll see that it looks like one of the edit options on a field has been changed. So the edit definition on the profile table for the capital threshold amount has actually been set differently. So it looks like we have a prompt edit table on one environment and not on the other for the threshold amount associated with the profile table. And it looks like the edit value itself, the use edit option, has been set differently as we see PeopleSoft's binary code or triggers that are set differently there. So that would give us the indication to open up that profile table, open up that capital threshold ID field in App Designer, and we can see PeopleSoft specific differences there. Okay. And that, with the power of Beam's methods, gives you the ability to compare your information across environments, not worrying about whether you're trying to drill down into actual data values or into metadata values. Beam Compare pulls that all together for you with its provided methods that help you slice and dice and analyze the PeopleSoft system in the groupings or the logical view that makes sense to what you're trying to analyze. Thank you.